Hello, Internet. I must tell you I'm excited today, and I know that's an in-house joke. People laugh at me because I always say I'm excited. But you know what I am? I am actually excited. I'm over I was a bit of burnt out, but now I'm fine. First for news, let me tell you, we've got a new blonde here with us. It's not Andrew Whittaker. It's the angel of 6-1 math, as I call her. Nicole Dixon, soon to be Dr. Dixon. When that happens, that's how you will address her unless she gives you permission. Otherwise, she's laughing here in the background. Very welcome here, Nikki. We're grateful for you. Also to Andrew, everybody. Fossey, you know what? We've got a good team here. What we do at Legacy is we're trying to get the security forces history of South Africa onto video. And there's many reasons why we're doing it, but I would say two of them stands out to me. The first one is that it betrays all these lies, all these lies which we've been told since 1990, that we were killers and all sorts of horrible things, which we know is not true. We know that the army especially fought a very honorable war, and the guys were following orders, and they were subjected to the Geneva Conventions. And war crimes were very far and few and in between, and where they were found out, even in the police where I come from, they were dealt with very harshly. Many policemen went to jail, some were executed after being found guilty of murder, things like that. And there was a standing joke in my time in the police that the position of a head librarian in any prison is reserved for ex-policemen who's done something somewhere wrong. So the discipline was there, and I got fed up with all these lies and nonsense and stories. And that is, for me, one of the main things about Legacy is that people are coming to us to tell these stories. And because they do that, it's almost like a testimony, and you cannot really argue with that unless you were there. And that brings me to the second point. It is good for these people to actually speak. If I have to tell you with how many people I spoke here who were in tears afterwards or would write to us and say to us, thank you. You know what? It's the first time in my life I actually speak to people about these things. I've had to notice crux holders, which is a very high medal for bravery, for valor, saying the same thing to me, and sometimes he would even have a few tears. So this to me is almost like charity. It is something which we do, which is very, very important. So I thought once a year, we have like a background type of video. Normally it comes out in December. That's where we look back on the year. But I thought so many things have changed in the first 7 months. We've got Nicole here now. Andrew has come in with one hell of a bang. Fossey is doing a lot of editing there in the background and also, doing good work with the Air Force. I don't know where these Air Force, almost said wankers, these Air Force people are. But you're all welcome here. Everybody's welcome, even the prison service. And I thought, let us have a quick talk about the background of Legacy, and we'll do one in December as well. One of the other reasons why I'm doing that is because it's growing. The channel is growing. We're almost at 8,000 subscribers now, which means between 10 and 15 guys every day is coming aboard. Please remember to also press that bell thingy. Otherwise, you will not be informed of new episodes. To subscribe alone is not good enough. But we do like subscriptions. So please subscribe, tell your mates about it, bring them here. And then, because you may be new here, let me also explain with you. We do have a total zero tolerance policy against online abuse. In other words, if somebody, a guest, comes and he speaks to us, we are very grateful for that fellow to come to us, and he trusts that we will do the right thing. So if you go up there and you start insulting this fellow, or you're insulting me, or you're insulting one of the presenters here, I'm not going to argue with you. This is not Facebook. And I'm not in court anymore where I have to actually argue with you. I'm just going to ban you. I'm going to get rid of you. And I have really zero tolerance. Even if I think you're making the wrong noises, or it is not said in the spirit which I want to hear it, you go. So I will ask all of you that think before you start typing anything in a comment in Legacy. It's like my old grandmother always said, if you have nothing good to say about somebody, then keep quiet. Having said that, the statistics will tell us that we normally only have 2 negative votes on any given video. And I know who these 2 people are. They are liberals, very anti-apartheid people, and they don't even watch the videos. All they do is they see the video comes up and they click a negative remark. So I'm asking you, guys, let us not go that route. I'm not going to hesitate in any sense of the word to ban you. So don't do that. Let us keep us sensible between us. This is no place for you to, if you have anger issues or something, well, even then you can contact us because we have a psychologist here also, a veteran, a former major of 3-2 Battalion. So he's the last man in the world you want to give nonsense to or the lip. But if you have that kind of issues, then come and talk to us. And Nikki herself is Nikki, what are you actually? I can't say that word in English.
I'm a pastoral therapist.
Okay, and what does these people do? I mean, do you preach to them?
No, not at all. It's exactly the same as seeing a psychologist. I use a narrative therapy model which believes in the value of people's stories, and that's what draws me to legacy. Is that people get to share their stories and find that release after they've done so.
Yeah, right. I completely forgot. I got so taken away from telling what I wanted to tell you that I forgot that we actually start videos like this and to sit rep every Sunday. We start with a prayer, as we did in the army, as we did in the police, I'm sure the Air Force as well. Foresee that you people actually attend prayer parades. Were there such a thing in the Air Force?
Oh, yes. And we actually, in later years, one of the area chaplains would come pay us a visit every week for the normal early morning meeting. And in that way, I got returned to a church because I hadn't been going to church, and because this guy came in, I started chatting with him. He was a national serviceman, did his Air Force national service as a pastor, and definitely, faith is always an important part of everything.
Yeah, Andrew, I'm quite sure that you guys in the army, I mean, you were 6-1 veteran, you were at Smoke Shell. You people also started like that. It was part of the army tradition in those days.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every parade started with a prayer parade. On the border, at Omatea with 6-1, we had our Dominee of Brom LaRue, who was, I think he was based in Sumer, but he spent a lot of time at Omatea. There was, and it's an issue I've discussed with Nikki. There was an absence of English-speaking ministers, priests, etc. I think they felt we shouldn't be there. Most of the sort of traditional English religions or denominations, but certainly from the Afrikaans side, the Dominees were there.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that. So let us start this one then with a prayer as well. I've asked our chaplain, Colonel Andre Olivier, to say a few words for us.
Good day to all. What a wonderful privilege once again just to be able to share a couple of words with you. And as we used to say in the military or the police, fall in, and we have time together around the Word of God and so on. But I want to put specific emphasis on this episode today on background of what Legacy has been doing, what they have achieved, and also to recognize all of the people that are working behind the scenes. Nikki that's come on board, Andrew, Fossey, and of course Koos, who really is working day and night and strange hours all over the world because he's sitting on the other side of the world. And, we take these things so much just for granted. But you know what legacy is all about? Me being a pastor and also a previous hostage negotiator and so on. It's very, very, very important to be able to talk, to diffuse by talking, by sharing your emotions, by sharing your views, how you experience things, how you saw things. And what's also very, very important is to give your side of the story. You know, I say many times that if you think of Peter that was a fisherman and he was going to walk on water, and you've got 3 or 4 people standing on the shore looking, and one sees Peter wanting to get out of the boat and he walks away. The next one actually sees him walking on water, then he walks away. Another one sees him sinking. And you talk to each of those individuals, each is going to give you a different story. The first one will say, "Can you believe it? This crazy fisherman want to walk on water." The second will say, "No, I actually saw him walk on water." And the other one will argue, "No, I saw he didn't get her." You know, it's that type of thing. We each have a story to tell. And we have a lot of people that were against the war, that was against the liberals and so on, that saw things differently. But this is our opportunity to give our side of the story, to diffuse. And, you know, if you looked recently at Flipscutter, for argument's sake, this is a very hard guy. But tears came to his eyes when he could come and just share his side of the story, and also, you know, give honor to his late father. So this is the platform, this is the opportunity, and Koos and to the team, thank you that you've given me the opportunity to be part of this team. And please allow me to pray. Abba Father, I just want to pray a blessing over this team, Lord, over all the people working behind the scenes. I'm talking about Koos and Fossie and Andrew and Nikki and all of the rest, Lord, that I'm not even aware of, Lord, giving their time voluntarily. Father, I think of the people there with Diaz Gasto down in Bloemfontein, people who donated money and time and resources to him. And there's so many others, Lord. And I bless each and every person, their contribution that will make a change in their lives, their families' lives, Lord. And also the people, Lord, that need still to come to share their legacy. I call them in the name of Jesus. And Father, I just bless and speak a blessing, Lord, over the Legacy channel, Father God, and that your name may be glorified, and that positive stuff gets said and shared, and people can be healed, Lord. On the physical side, they can get limbs and they can get prosthesis, Lord. But the psychic, the man's self, Lord, needs to be healed, and that takes place through the power of the Holy Spirit. And one of those building blocks is to speak. So thank you, Father God. I bless this channel in Jesus' name. Thank you very much for allowing me to talk to you. Stay blessed and get your friends to talk in Jesus' name. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Andre. We really appreciate what you're doing and your kind words here. Now, I must tell you that we're having fun at Legacy, and quite a few things happened in the background which you people don't always know about. But it happened twice to me now, and I'm probably one of the younger guys here, is that I completely forgot to press record. And so we had Brigadier General Alexander. We had him on, McGill Alexander, Paratrooper General, Commander of 44 Parachute Brigade. And a fantastic man. He's got a PhD as well. This is one of his brilliant people in life. Just a fantastic fellow. And he spoke very, very well. You could see this guy at the right schools which he attended, you know. And then he's prepared. The generals, they do tend to be very prepared. And so he was just hammering away. He's telling the story, and after about 40 minutes, I realized I forgot to press record. And I had to stop him. And I said, sir. And he looks at me like this. And I call it the McGill look. It's like a senior officer looking at you, you know, and he's like, looks at me like this, and he says, yes. I said, sir, I forgot to press record. And he says, really? And then he says, did you press it now? And I said, yes, sir. And he says, and then he started exactly where he should have. He just carried on. It was the most amazing actually thing to see. And then this last week, you wouldn't believe, I was recording Ops Amazon. Now, that is for Special Forces Attack 1 and 4 Reiki Lobito when they blew up the oil refineries and the cement factory and other things in 1980. And Colonel Frans van Dyk was talking, and he was actually one of the team commanders at that stage. I think he was a sergeant major. And same story. He started talking, and after about 10 minutes, I said, "Hey, Frans, sorry." And then I had to say it. And from there on, and you can ask Fossey behind my back because he's doing the recordings. Every single time that Frans speaks or anybody of him speaks after that, they say to me, "Is the recording button on?" So okay. But that was not the worst of it. And we'll get to Fossey later because I'm sure he's going to tell us a few stories. But Andrew Whittaker in the beginning of the year made a fantastic video. He was with a colonel, and he was at, well, you can tell the story, Andrew, where you fell off the rattle.
Yeah, I think this has been highly exaggerated. My very first video as a legacy presenter was to interview Jan Malan at the War Museum in Saxonwold, where we went through the rattle from top to bottom, front to back, side to side, and he explained everything. And at some point in time, he decided we needed to get on top of the rattle. Now, I would guess Jan is probably about 5'6". He's quite a bit older than me, but he's as fit as anything. I'm 6'4". I climb onto this rattle. The rattle's parked inside the building at the War Museum. So my head's just about touching the roof. And Jan's running around from one side to the other, and I've got to try and turn around to video this. I didn't nearly fall off, but let me tell you, it's not that comfortable when you're 6 foot above the rattle, size 12 feet, trying to find a place to stand and turn in. But I found this pipe, the fire irrigation pipe, and I held onto this, which made it a lot easier because I had one hand holding the camera and the other holding the pipe. But yeah, I mean, there was certainly no falling or nearly falling. It was just actually very uncomfortable. And Jan just runs around as if he's just on normal ground. I mean, but I think size does matter in these cases as well when you're a bit closer to the ground. Yeah, and then talking of not recording, I interviewed Igor, the Russian interpreter. Went through the whole thing, and at the end realized I hadn't recorded. So you're not alone. But I must say, the second time round, while it's embarrassing, the time round is a lot easier because you now know, and it's a lot more structured. Whereas the first time you meet the guy, you jump in from one thing to the other. Now that you've heard the story, you could sort of hear it and structure it a lot better. But yeah, I think that's my story.
I also want to say thank you to Marlene, who's Andrew's wife, lovely woman. And she's always around. Wherever Andrew is recording, she's also there. And sometimes she actually works the camera. So we just want to say thank you, a special thank you to her as well. Fossey, do you have any story which went wrong with you?
Same. Remember, folk, we are amateurs. I've never done this kind of thing before. Fortunately, when I joined Koos, when he kindly took me on, I had been nagging for a while. He didn't want no, as he calls us, blowjobs around here. So he eventually sent me an edit. But fortunately, I have my own little YouTube channel, which I've had for years. I'm that paradox in life, engineer and artist. I'm not really an artist, but I need creativity in my life. When I don't have creativity, I reckon that creativity, when I started going back that way, brought contentment to my life. So I have this little YouTube channel, and I walk around on the beaches and I do things. So I've learned a bit about, but I don't know about editing, really. So, or then recording is easy when you walk around on the beach and you record. But when you sit and so-called interview somebody, I did exactly the same. More than once I had to, but fortunately, I realized this quite early on. I think Peter Baxter was one of them. I was totally in awe of Peter Baxter. The man comes out of Rhodesia, Zimbabwe, call it what you want to. He actually was there in the transition period, so I'm allowed to use both terms there, both names. But he'd been a soldier in Rhodesia / Zimbabwe, as I say, the changeover. And he, that other channel, let's call it our cousin's sister channel there over the border, I went and watched, and I was totally in awe of this guy. And I thought to myself, I'm going to blow this. And of course, I blew it by not recording. And I think the other one that I blew not recording was Arthur Piercy. Now, folk, go and rewatch both of those if you haven't watched them before. I'm very well, we're going to get to it. I'm very proud of the Arthur Piercy one. It's the top ranking SAF video. It's over 20,000. I think it's going close to 21,000 views. And we hope to have him back. But that's for later discussion. So the other thing that I do to myself, I forget to mute my phone. So I'll be sitting talking, and then you hear this. Why do the messages always come in when you lie? So here it is. It's muted. Promise you, because I learned that lesson. I do podcasts as well. So actually, I realized a life's lesson. My phone is mostly muted now all the time. So I don't respond every time the phone goes to have to look what's going on, apart from when it's Koos. There's a sixth sense to when it's Koos, then I respond immediately. Otherwise, I'll kick up my posterior. Anyway, yeah, so we all do it. We all learn from it. And remember, we editing these things. So every boo-boo you make, you've got to find a way to splice this and put it together. And so try and make as few boo-boos as possible. Yeah, I'm also perfect because I boo-boo all the time.
Now we're talking about that. Guess what happened to me just now? Now we're all looking to see the recording button. I forgot to put the power thing in for the laptop to charge it. So give me a second, if you don't mind. Yeah, not too bad. That wasn't on purpose, I promise you. And I have to say to you, Fossey also plays music. He's a disco jockey or something. We'll put the links and things in here. Andrew is an auditor by trade. And yeah, I think we're good people. I mean, Fossey is also an engineer. We learned a few things from him. Apparently, there's no such thing in the lugmag as a vlugingenieur. You call it a boordtechnicus. Wherever I say that words, I see his face. And he's making a few signs there in the background. Another joke, which we've done, and Nikki, you can be glad we haven't done this to you yet, is that when he first came on, he wanted to speak to SV4E, the Special Forces Sergeant Major, whose book he read. So he really likes the guy. And SV is a very likable person, I have to say that too. And so the three of us are speaking about the book. And I decided I'm going to see how I can disrupt this meeting. So I started putting faces and making all sorts of signs there to Fossey. I have to say, he ignored me quite well. He ignored me quite well until I got a message from SV to say, stop your, well, he used the Sergeant Major words, stop your nonsense. So I did that. Nikki, I don't think you can tell us any roller stories this far because you haven't really started, but I think in 6 months from now, we will hear something from you. But I see the one common thing is we forget to press recording. Now, guys, you have to remember something. we're not super people in any sense of a word. I was a sergeant in the police. Fossey, I think you were a flight sergeant. At least you were flying, hovering around with your beloved helicopters until you crashed. Have you ever been on a helicopter again since the incident, since you fell?
Yeah, yeah, and actually flew. Center seat, long nav, got in. I was apprehensive, I must say. So yes, in a nutshell, I have been back, also back in the Puma. The base was closing down at that point in time, but there were allos still on occasion. And then for the military show, not the military shows, the agricultural shows, they would bring, and I would go in with the allos and go and show them the best landing spot at the showgrounds, because I knew it like the back of my hand. And then in the Puma as well. So yeah, the answer is yes. Those days, people went on to Pumas very, very quickly. I never went to Pumas. I stayed on allos, a few different reasons. I was the longest serving allo flight engineer, hour-wise, at that stage in the SAF when our squadron closed down. I've got 1,275 allo flying hours. That's a lot.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. But that brings me to something serious now. There's a standing invitation to all of you to come and speak to us. We really don't care if you were a chef, or if you were in the Air Force or the Navy, or we don't care. I mean, there is some people who say we prefer to speak to Special Forces, 32 Battalion, 61 MAG, the elite units, paratroopers. But that is not true. I want to tell every one of you, if you're listening here and you think to yourself that, man, I've got a story, then please come and tell us. And even if you think you don't have a story, then you probably have a better story than most. So how the process will work is, you will find in every single video, you will find the email address, or you will find the presenter's email address. We're going to put the email addresses on as well. It's not to say you're going to speak to the presenter you want to speak to unless you have a good reason. It depends on how busy these people are, because, they're not retired. They're still running the businesses in the background. They're still busy. And I'm sure, Nikki, you're a mom and you have a husband to take care of and all those things, which takes time, as you all know. And so we will allocate somebody to you, but we will try to accommodate you as far as we can. Now, it's a simple email. You just need to contact us. We will get back to you. We will explain to you things like that. And that is why I want to get to you now, is that I've already warned, and I want to repeat that warning. Legacy is not the place for you to start insulting people. Really, you can ask quite a few hundred people who we banned, and we will not change that policy for anything in life. So for the simple reason that once you come out here on the open and you start telling your story, thousands of people are going to watch you, and thousands of hours of material is going to go out there on the internet, and we will protect you as far as we can. That is why we will never allow you to say anything, or we will not broadcast anything which can bring you into trouble. We're not interested in things which might be embarrassing to you from both a legal viewpoint and personally. We don't do that. We don't discuss politics, and we don't talk about COVID for the simple reason that, we will be banned. And let's get to what happens now. We will ask you to give us a short resume, CV of yourself, so we just know basically who you are. Now, many people actually ask me, they say to me, Koos, how do you actually know the guy you're talking to is not a bullshitter and was not lying? It's actually a very good question. It's a good question. Certain units are really very easy, because if you say you're from Special Forces, I will definitely call Special Forces and ask him. And we will ask you for your operator's number, and God will not help you if you can't give it to me. Because I will definitely, and it happened before, I will most certainly then report you to Special Forces as the guy who's saying he was there if he wasn't there. The other thing is, what also happens is, it's a very small group. I'm quite sure if a guy comes to Fossey and he says he was a Mirage pilot or he was at that squadron, it won't take them long to find out if a guy was there or not. The same with Andrew's people. There's no way in the world you're going to bullshit. And even if you do, You're not going to get away with it because thousands of people are going to watch this and they're going to know if you talk nonsense to us. But we also say to you that if ever you want your video removed for whatever reason, we will do it. It happened only once in the 2 years which Legacy is existing, where a paratrooper asked me to remove his video for reasons unknown. I don't ask reasons. It's not my problem. I have a feeling I know why it is, but I'm not going to tell you. It's got nothing personal. It's political. And then we had to remove the videos, and we will do that. But of course, there's a warning. Once something is out on the internet, anybody can download it and spread it around somewhere else. So there is a little bit of a risk as well going on here. But we don't really want you to over-prepare. I just said that the generals and the senior officers, and especially special forces, are extremely well prepared, and that's really nice. But what we don't really like is when people start just reading something. We want him to tell the story in his own language, which is either Afrikaans or English. Nikki says to me, she speaks the taal quite well. I speak it well myself. And so it's your choice. We've had a problem like that, and that's why we have this episode. We're not going to force somebody to speak English or to speak Afrikaans. We give him a choice. Many people want to speak English for the simple reasons that their grandchild or grandchildren might be in Canada or Australia, New Zealand, America, right across the world, and these kids cannot speak Afrikaans anymore. And that is the problem. That is one of the reasons why they do it. They also want to reach the international market, and we don't mind. For us, it is English or Afrikaans. And yes, we don't know everything. I mean, there's no way in the world that I'm going to understand the flight engineers when they start talking. The other day we had one on, I can't remember which one it was, but Fossie was involved, and they started shouting to each other, rotate, rotate, rotate. Fossie, what the hell do you mean by that?
I don't know. It was just a moment. Auto rotate, I mean, that's when you lose your engine typically. Then you auto rotate and you go and land safely. Ask me, I know all about it.
Yes, I did ask actually Neil Wallace the other day. I think it is in the video which came out on Sunday a few days ago, how to auto rotate that helicopter down, because my late wife was a pilot as well, and she used to, that you could wake her up in the middle of the night and poke her in the side and say auto rotate, and she would go into this mode. There's no other word for what she would be doing. I sometimes felt that she actually firmly believed that the engine has got to die on her any given time. But it does bring me to the point I want to make here is, this is a conversation, it's not an interrogation. And it really depends on the client. I've already said to you, the guest can speak whatever language he wants to speak as long as we can follow him. And the other thing is also is that some of them actually don't want to speak that much. They expect us to ask them questions. I found that out with the 3-1 Battalion black members, the Portuguese soldiers, they don't really speak. You have to ask them questions all the time. They answer and then they stop. They answer and then they stop. And then we have to, of course, do what is needed. And there will be some people then who comes out and say, oh, you know, this would have been so good if he wasn't constantly interrupted. My friend, you don't know what you're talking about. You're not behind the scenes. You don't know what that guy has asked us to do. Then you get other people like McGill and others who just talk. And we sit there and we're not actually bored. You know, we sit and listen and we make notes. And at the end of the time, we actually ask questions, which is relevant, which we don't understand. Because if I don't understand something, I take for granted that many other people will also not understand. I mean, we can't be a jack of all trades. We can't be that. It is just not possible. Andrew, you had an incident like that. I think you were talking to the Pathfinder guys of a parachute battalion, and you're going to talk to them again because the entire Pathfinder company is now coming to Legacy, I understand, through you. They're also going to do the same as you did with Colonel Malon, where they explained the equipment. They said they will start explaining to us how the halo systems work. That is when you do a parachute jump with oxygen and you free fall down. special forces type of stuff, but there's a very special way those equipment, how it's working. So we're trying to get episodes like that out as well. But Andrew, what happened that day? I mean, somebody made a comment, I banned him, the bastard. I'll ban him again if he try that. Where he said that you were unprepared.
Yeah, I think, you know what, I'm open to criticism at any time. But if you're going to criticize, then be more specific. To put a general comment about it's a pity the presenter was so unprepared. Firstly, there's so little information. This related to the Pathfinder video. And just to give a bit of background, Leon drove from Durban to Bloemfontein. I drove from the Eastern Cape, since the east, to Bloemfontein. Tuni drove from Bothaville to Bloemfontein. We were planned so well that when Leon phoned me to say he's arrived, I was driving up Church Street in Bloemfontein. So we arrived within 5 to 10 minutes of each other. We all had to get to further destinations. We were driving through to Johannesburg. So our time was relatively limited. I hadn't met these guys before. There's very little information out there on Pathfinders. So yeah, maybe I was underprepared. My personal opinion is that if you're too prepared, you probably don't ask the questions that the general public out there would like to hear information on. So I think being unprepared, you listen to what they've got to say and ask your questions according to what they say. But I just feel if someone feels that, rather elaborate. You know, it's a bit like being on a WhatsApp group and someone just leaves. Then you wonder, now, did someone say something to upset that person? And I always just say to people, if you want to leave the group, just tell us the reason, so that if it's a problem, we can try and correct it. And exactly the same. I'm not sure where I was deemed to be unprepared, but yes, you know, the guy making the comment doesn't know that I've just traveled 600 Ks, literally arrived at the venue, set up the camera and started recording. And on top of that, that's the first time I've met the two gents that I'm interviewing.
Yeah, I have to say, and that's the other thing which annoys me is when people start complaining about the sound. You know what, guys? No one is sponsoring us for this. This comes out of our own pockets. And yes, if you want to make donations, you're welcome to make donations. You can do that. If you want to run ads on our shows, you can do that too. If we agree to what you want, what you are selling. But this is totally out of our own pocket. So we can't afford to buy, you know, 100,000 rands camera and 200,000 rands microphone, things like that. We're doing a service. And so I get seriously annoyed when people say that they have a problem with the sound or it's this or that. Nie tyd vir kinderagtigheid nie. I'm sure you'll all understand what I'm talking about. But there's one other thing which is extremely annoying about what we're doing here. And this has to do with a guest. And I want to ask you people once again, we do say this in the intro video, which we sent you when you want to come on Legacy. But I'm going to repeat it here to all of you. Guys, you don't quite understand how much work it is for us to edit this video. It is really nice for us to sit and talk, and it's really nice for us to record the thing. But thereafter, the actual work starts. Now, we're lucky in a sense. We've got Fossie there in the background in Ireland. He's doing most of the editing. We're doing a lot of editing for us in the background. Very, very valuable. And then the rest of us are actually doing our own editing. And we are not editors in any sense of a word. There's nothing arty about me. I mean, really, I just slam a thing through and I get it out as quickly as we can. Yes, we have a certain format we follow because we have to, by way of legal reasons. There has to be disclaimers, things like that on there. But it's really, really annoying to us if if we say to you, send us your pictures and tell us where it must come in. So in other words, we will do the edit without pictures. Then we give it to you, you have a look at it, and you say, okay, Koos, I think we need a picture at minute 16, second 11. This picture number 1. And then we'll put it there. But man, that picture better be in the right place, because we're not gonna listen to the entire 2-3 hours and then, you know, search a place for where it should come or something like that. You have to look at your video yourself when we give you a link, and you have to be accurate and tell us where it should come. And we're going to follow that. We're going to follow it slavely. We're going to say to you, right, you said to us, minute 16, second 11, bang, that thing is in there. Even if you're talking about something else, we don't care. We really don't have a time to redo all the videos, because remember, after we've done you, the next one comes and the next one comes. We are 4 of us now, and I want to invite anybody who wants to be part as a presenter. Please contact me. You're welcome. Yeah, we would be grateful for more assistance. But the 4 of us cannot in any possible way record the entire border war or security forces history of South Africa alone. We cannot. It's impossible. So we're trying the best we can do, and we ask that you play the game with us. And I will ask the other presenters. Andrew, do you have anything to say in this regard for us?
Yes, I think the time factor or the time involved in the edit, I don't think people understand the length of it. You know, while you interview and you're so involved in listening to pick up what you should be asking and things like that, that very often, only when you go back and listen to the recording, do you remember certain things being said, or in fact, sometimes you don't even remember them being said. So the editing process really involves listening to the whole video again, as you said, putting in photos, cutting out, adding in, etc. I say the editing process is 2 to 3 times the length of the actual video. Right? Then from the editing software, and I think it's partly to do with slow internet speeds, but to export that video from the editing software takes literally hours. And yes, it's not necessary that you've got to be sitting there. You can tell the computer to export and come back, but it takes quite a long time. At least the same length of the video, but generally longer than the video. Then once you've exported it, you then need to upload it to YouTube, which takes time again. As you mentioned before, we're still working, so we've got to try and find this time after hours, weekends, etc., etc. So it's quite a slow process, and I think if viewers need to understand that if I interviewed you today, your video is not going to come out this weekend or next week, or it's going to take time. It's a fairly slow process. Sorry, just one other thing to add, and maybe I don't think Forsie and Koos experience it as much as us, or I do, because I'm doing a lot more face-to-face interviews. And maybe just for Nikki's future recording, I've worked out a Zoom interview is quite easy to edit because it's all one long interview. You go and chop out a few things and things like that. I've learned from experience that when you're doing a face-to-face interview, just leave your camera or your phone on record. It's a lot easier to cut out things that shouldn't be there than to try and put together 5 or 6 or 7 different recordings and get them into the right places and things. It's really just a lot easier to record from the word go and then just cut out.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. That's valuable advice. I'll ask Forsie now what problems he experiences with with editing. And I mean, sometimes on Zoom, the problem is the internet, especially in a place like South Africa where you have a ESCOM problem and the sound might not be 100% correct. And also remember, many times of the guys we actually interview are also working. You know, so they also have only this limited period which they can speak to us. But in a general rule, once we recorded you, you might have to wait about 6 weeks before you're going to go live. When you go live, we will inform you of that. But don't put pressure on us. I mean, there's only so many slots available, and lots of people were before you. Fossey, any advice for editing for us? What have you seen?
Right. I think the fundamentally the first thing that I learned is to say to whoever you're chatting with, as Koos said, this is not an interview, this is a conversation, this is a chat. To say to them to be themselves, to do their own thing. And then for me, ek het 'n groot bek. I like flipping gorreling all the time. For me, I had to learn to shut up and sit back and let these guys, and I haven't had, yeah, Nikki, I think I can say guys and girls, because Nikki actually spoke to me. I think you were the first lady that I've spoken to. So for me to shut up, and sometimes it's not easy, Nikki, going back to, when I met Nikki and Andrew the first time was with HP Ferreira. It was an incredibly emotional episode. I had to ask them to stop for me to control myself and compose myself. So I suppose in a way that's, you guys must remember that too. If we're chatting with you, it could trigger a memory with us that puts us in a place where we might not want to be. That's just come out of the blue. Sorry about that. But the point of the matter being, there's a live dynamic, and I've learned, and I don't know if you presenters may have realized, and this is to go back to not hitting the record button and having a phone. I have the third thing on my little checklist, my pre-flight, that I tell people is that I cannot sit still. Sorry, people, it's because of injuries. So I'm sitting like this, trying to be comfortable through 2.5 hours of recording. And I say this to the people, when I start doing this, I have to get up, I have to stretch. And it becomes very, very funny because you break the other person's flow. So that's something that I've also learned. Let them speak. I don't make notes. In the beginning, I used to sit with SV Ferreira. I had notes and I kept on referring. It looks stupid, people. So I just sit here, and that's what I've learned from this. And while we're on this topic of editing and what Andrew has said, I burnt out the computer, basically. It's lying here next to me. I use it for storage. Koos and Rebecca and the laptop fund, you'll always see a card at the end of a video that I have edited. Koos will drop it in here too. That's because of the laptop fund, that people volunteered, threw money in to a kitty, and I've got this laptop that I'm currently using. And what a relief to be able to. It's only 32 gig. If there was anything better, if there was a 64, I would have taken that. But there wasn't that available. This is a rebuilt computer. And what a pleasure when I say a video comes out 2 hours long, after all the work that Andrew said we do, when I render that video, it only takes less than a video is long. What a pleasure. The old one used to take 5 times as long, that you have to come and check that it's still, you haven't crashed. Oh, my soul. Any case, lessons learned, the pleasure. And once again, I say thank you. As I say, Koos will drop that card in here. Thank you to those folk. And there were quite a few that didn't want to be named as well, but mostly it was Rebecca and Koos and the Railway Police Special Forces team. And I see the big fat hand of our chaplain there, because he's the main man there. And then there were 1 or 2 other souls, and I know one's name There could have been a second one, one's name from Air Force X, long ago Air Force Days. Thank you very much. That's me, and thank yous for this. And that was, because we'll ask for highlights. That was a highlight for me, because I have the pleasure of doing edits that don't drive me onto the ceiling virtually every time I do an edit. Thank you.
Now I'm in the lucky position that my wife says I'm a man who can sit on my ass for long as he's ever seen anybody sit on his ass without moving. But when I write a book, I can really sit from 7 o'clock in the morning till 10 at night. I just get up to go to a toilet and to eat. And that's how I write. So I got some training in that, sitting on my ass in the police as well. We sat on our asses in the flying squad cars a lot of time. And but that brings me to something, Fossey, which you mentioned here. But before I get to that, I just want to say, if there's anybody who comes to me and say, Koos, yeah, you don't really have a story, my man, about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 2.5 hours later, he's still talking. That's the one thing we see constantly happening. Like, and it often happens that people say to us, man, I didn't realize I was speaking that long. But that's fine. You can speak until you're done, as long as you don't start quarreling or doing something which we have to cut out or anything like that. But I'm going to ask a very unfair question to all of you. So I will ask myself first, and I will answer it. Who's the easiest guy to interview? Who's the guy who's the most easiest ever to interview, which you had on the privilege of meeting? And it is a privilege. I just want to say to your people, being a legacy presenter opens doors, which is, man, it's magic. You speak to fighter pilots like Arthur Percy did. I mean, a guy who's in the books. You speak to people like HP, you know, the wounded veteran, which is a man so fantastic that I don't have words for him. And you meet other guys like yourself, you know, like troopies and people you have so much in common with. And it's just fantastic. I mean, it is hard actually not to be overawed sometimes with these people. And then they look at you with these big eyes and they expect you to take command and tell them what to do and what not to do. We never, ever, by the way, tell people what to say, except for those three things, you know, COVID, politics, and things which can bring you into trouble. We never, ever say to people what not to do. We just don't do that. But the easiest person for me to interview ever, Frans Fourie. The one and only Frans Fourie, the one recce commander, Colonel Frans Fourie. He was so easy. There were really nothing difficult about him. The most difficult one, and I say this with great love and respect, is RSM James Staitger. One recce, 5 recce. Because with James Staitger, if you don't ask the question perfectly, he looks at you like this, and he's got a sergeant major look. It scares me. He looks at you like this, and he just says, repeat that question. And he will not answer until you actually explain exactly what you want. So you have to be up your cop, you know, all the time. So those two are for me the easiest and the most difficult. And we don't mean it in a bad way in any sense of a word, guys. We like speaking to all of you. This is just talking between us. Andrew, who was the most easiest one to speak to? Colonel Malone?
I think there are probably two. Doc Anthony Turton, definitely up there. He went on, spoke for about 2.5 hours. He knew exactly what he wanted to talk about. He, you know, people questioned his, I'm trying to think, sort of legitimacy in his story. But he knew his story so well that it just flowed. And the other guy, this guy in Seattle, I've just done a second interview, is Andre Odendaal. And Andre went through many units. He started at medics, then went to officers course, I think infantry officers course, then joined 3-1, then went 5 recce, and eventually spent some time in the Israeli army. But again, you say hello and he just tells his story because he just knows his facts and he's got it all worked out. Yeah, I think I don't think there've been any that I found really difficult. Yeah, I think, but those two stood out as being really easy.
Yeah, I just want to say also, sometimes we make an episode and then there's so many questions or we invite the man back or the woman, and sometimes it does take time. And Andre is one of them. It's a month or two probably since we had his first episode, and we only get to him now again. Please, once again, remember, guys, we're working people in the background, and also these guys are also working, and they might be in the other end of the earth, so there's a time problem here as well. But normally when we say we will come back to somebody, we will. Just give us time. Once again, press that button thing, that clocky, that bell, so you can be informed of the episodes. Now, Fossi, who was the easiest and the most difficult for you? It must be easier for the most difficult.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. And just by the way, this is what Koos was doing to me the day when I was sitting here, and he just carried on with it. Now, how am I supposed to function? Any case, no, SVFRE was my first one, and it will live with me forever. One of the highlights ever of, I was talking to, I don't have the book here, it's over there. I could have showed you the book, but of course I'll put a card in here. I was talking to him specifically about an incident in the book where, and Koos relates this too, where there was fire, live fire, and SVA got hit. And SVA reckons the first thing that went through his mind, or the only thing that went through his mind, I don't want to die a virgin. And then after that, somewhere along the line, he carried on with this. He was a student already, and they were brawling. And of course, like all good Christians, he was still a virgin lad. And I piped up halfway through this lot, blows up half of Angola, and claims to be still a virgin lad. I'll never forget that moment, because I think we all just packed up laughing. SV is not the most difficult. I'm going to tell you now is the most difficult. The best for me, or obviously, I want the Air Force's stories. And I'm going to keep saying this. So somebody that I didn't know, but our paths must have crossed somewhere along the line. Koos did the first interview with him. He pulled second on Legacy Conversations, most watched channels, is Dr. Steve Scott. What a gentleman. I then subsequently had an episode with him, and we started chatting. And he's on my private WhatsApp. He sends me funnies, and he sends me there's another one coming. France. Koos has mentioned Frans van Staden. The two of them are going to talk to each other, because they're both psychiatrists, psychologists. They're going to talk to each other from different perspectives. And I'm going to be sitting here, and so you can talk to him about anything, and he'll brief you beforehand. You want to talk about a bit about this and a bit about that. So in your prep work, he's already done the prep work for you. I love speaking with the Air Force. Mani Janssen is doing good work in the background. My friend, the wheelchair aircraft pull, Robert Earl. I only vaguely knew about Robert Earl until I watched the first, that Koos did an interview with him. We have lots in common. He went down in an allo, leg injuries and that kind of thing. Totally inspirational, man. They've just been just now, in this week, the 3rd of July, they went and said their final goodbyes to an ex-SAF flight engineer, DJ de Kock. That'll be coming. You'll see that at some point in time. But what an inspiration for me to be able to talk to these guys. I don't have to talk. I just say, hello, guys, and we share it, and then they do it all for me. And I edit it. And usually when the guys talk like this, okay, you wanted to know, I'll just keep speaking to the Air Force. I love it. There was a difficulty element with Arthur Piercy's because of his phone problems. Now, while I'm on phone problems, laptops, please, people. iPhones are horrendous. They're the ones that cause all the sound problems. So if you want to chat easily and make the editing easy, laptops, please, people. Okay, the most difficult person I have edited, and edited, because he does this to me. There's a certain individual, there's 4 episodes that I did with him, graciously, kindly. But he'll lead you around from this, and he'll take you from the shadows of one tree to the shadow of another tree. And you would have walked in the sunlight that whole period between the shadows of the 2 trees, and you'll still think you're in the dark. Because he won't answer. It's as simple as that. I've given up asking him about between this period of your life and that period of your life. Forget it, people. He's not going to tell you. So yeah, you, Koos, you are the most difficult person. Tanne trek. You know the old story about tanne trek? Jy, and vra antwoord. Tanne trek. Yeah. Okay. Enough of me.
When James, you're right at the end, there's one thing which we just cannot, under any circumstances, predict. And that is who's going to have the most views. Everybody laughs at me. Rebecca thinks I'm the funniest person in the world, thank God, because we're married. But whenever I'm finished with any type of recording, I walk out and say, man, this was, this was so good. So and then she said, yeah, you said that last time as well. Yeah, it's an internal joke. The problem for me is, if I don't say that now, when I start recording, the guy on the other side is like, I've been watching all the videos. You haven't said this to me. Koos, why is this? Did I do something wrong? I haven't even started yet. So no, it's an internal joke. But seriously, guys, there's no way we can predict this. There were some videos, the one, for instance, with Peter Williams and his rucksack of the escape gear of Free 2 Battalion. I thought that thing would go viral on our ideas for viral. I thought it would go 20,000 hits, and it didn't. And then there's others, like the Air Force, like the Bosbok pilot, Steve Scott, who I really like, really admire the man. I think he's second, isn't he, Fossey? He's just below Arthur Piercy, the fighter pilot, the Mirage pilot. We cannot predict these things. I wish I could. Andrew, you're an auditor. Can you make a prediction here for us? Who's going to win this?
No, of course, it just seems, as you say, so unpredictable. At one stage, I thought maybe it was a Saturday was a good day and a Wednesday a bad day, sort of thing. But I mean, Fossey was mentioning earlier about Rob Earl, and I spoke to him maybe 3 weeks ago because Fossey asked me to have a chat to him. And after that, went back and looked at his videos. And I mean, most of those didn't even get to 1,000. They're 300, 400, 500. And yet, they had all sorts of reasons to be watched, and they weren't watched. And then, I mean, I mentioned Andre Odendaal earlier. I think he's got the most views for any of the videos I've produced. And yes, he's got a story to tell, but I would never have predicted that. I would have thought even Anthony Turton or H.P. Ferreira would have got a lot more views. But yeah, it is unpredictable completely.
Yeah, we don't really... Look, guys, let me be honest with you. I don't care if you have 50 views or 500 or 50,000. For me, it's your story to come out, and you're welcome. Don't. But it is interesting also for us to see what happens. I can't predict it. Fossey, have you cracked this code? Do you have any idea who's going to make it or not? Because sadly, it seems the Air Force and the police are not popular at all.
Yeah, I no idea. As I say, 2 of the top Air Force pilots, well, the 2 top Air Force videos on the playlist And yes, folk, there's a playlist. Go look at it, and I want to fill that playlist. So that's why I'm asking again for the Air Force to come and speak. I did think to it, like Andrew and yourself, that maybe Fridays, but I think if there's a regular Friday movie, then people will watch. It's when the odd movie gets dropped in. You're now regularly putting Wednesday movies out. So I think movies. I think that those numbers, Wednesday numbers, will also go up. But here, I have no idea what drives, what doesn't drive. There's comments, for instance, on most of the Air Force videos that I have done where there's a specific lad, Kemp. Thank you, Kemp. He reckons we were naughty. Maybe that's people want to talk about the naughty bits. We just different mentality, I suppose. So it doesn't matter to me. It's the story. I'm chasing the story, as in currently I'm trying to get. There was more questions regarding Angola before Savannah, that period, late 60s, early 70s. There was an Air Force presence there. How many of us know anything about it? No, I don't. So please come and talk to us. Okay, enough from me.
While we were sitting here, I was thinking to myself that, you know what, there is a few rockpunte here. The free male presenters all live next to the ocean. We all have beards, even I. You can't really see it, but we have it. We're all professional people, engineer, auditor, attorney. But now we've got the blondie, but I think she's got to get a lot of views. I have a feeling about that. And I'm really glad about that too. We would, you know, there's one thing at Legacy we couldn't really do was, or I couldn't anyway, was to speak to the wives and to the girlfriends and the moms. You know, I just couldn't relate that much. I tried, but now I don't need to worry about it. We have Nikki here. Which reminds me, guys, do we have any advice to Nikki? I will start off by saying, Nikki, don't ever let Legacy swallow you. Because it will burn you out. It will kill you if you allow it to do so. You meet all these fantastic people. You sit here talking special forces, pilots, flight engineers, submariners. We're having submariners also coming to the party now. And you look at these people and you realize they're just human beings at the end of the day, but hell, they're in the storybooks, you know. These are different people. Don't let it swallow you. Just do what you can do and let the rest go. Andrew, any advice?
Yeah, I think one of the things I've found is the longer the video, the longer, the more difficult it is to edit, the more effort that's needed. And I also, I know from myself, if I click on a Legacy video and I start watching it maybe at 5 o'clock in the evening or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I watch for a few minutes and I see, hey, this thing's got 3 hours still to go or 2.5 hours to go. I sort of almost think, well, I'm not going to be able to finish watching it. So I would say rather, if you've got a long video, rather break it up into 2 or 3 videos and try and keep it to an hour, that sort of length of time. It's a lot easier to edit. It's a lot quicker to edit. That's just I know, of course, you've done some very long ones in the past. And I have done a couple of long ones. Anthony Turton was long, but I happened to be there. And then the other one that I did long, which hasn't been released yet, was the 3-2 Founders. I think that was also about 2.5 hours. And that takes a huge amount of work, editing and trying to get the photos in the right places and things like that. So my advice would be to try and keep them shorter rather than longer. And as I say, like I've done with Andre Odendaal, I cut his first one at about an hour. I've done his second one at about an hour, and there will probably be another 2 to follow. I think that's about it.
Ossie, over to you, the man with a cardigan.
Jumper. My wife wears cardigans. I wear jumpers, or as Nikki would call them, pullovers. Nikki, be yourself. I don't think I'd ever be able to interview or chat with the likes of Colonel Jan Malan. He seems to be rock solid, steady, so serious that he might just tell me to, in no uncertain terms, where to go and play in the traffic. But in your case, just be your, I think you are going to fit in that, as Koos says, in that space that needed on this channel, to talk to the wives. They're going to start queuing up at your door. So get that thesis completed and done. And doctor, please, we need to have you here. And I think a nice one will be for you to speak with Frans and the other guys too, and get it out there that there is help for people. Really, there is help for people.
Well, we're right at the end now, and I wish to thank everybody. As I said, these are working people here on the other side of me. I, for myself, I've got to walk to the beach now and probably take my camera with, do things like that. Fossey might do the same. But right at the end, Nikki, tell me, who do you want to speak to?
Chris, I think there are many untold stories in the family units. You know, the young soldiers being away and coming back. There's kind of a spillover of effects. It wasn't just how the soldiers changed, but what happened to the family and the loved ones as well. And so those are some of the stories that we'd like to start telling.
Right, and guys, he said to me, she speak with Tal as well. She will definitely be able to understand Afrikaans and to help you. So don't hesitate. Volunteer your wife, or whoever you want to volunteer, bring them. We'll definitely set her up with 2 psychologists as well. That will be an interesting 3-man group with Fossey, because it was his idea. And for the rest of you guys out there, you know what? Please spread the word. Come and join us. We're doing things here which is, I think, important. It's important for you guys to talk. It's important for you to hear the stories. It's important for the history. And it's important, I would almost say, for the country as well. We do have also a playlist for foreigners, Rhodesians. We have a US Marine up in the next 2-3 weeks from the Force Recon Unit. Guess what, guys? We're all the same. There's no difference. Only the uniform is different. The soldier is a soldier, policeman is a policeman, and the Air Force are what they are. And especially the Navy people. I don't know why you haven't come to Legacy, but please, the Navy is welcome here. We're fascinated by you. In fact, I'm recording somebody in the next week or 2 who's been on the SAS Tafelberg, and they escorted one of the new submarines all the way from France down to South Africa. That's the type of thing you will not find in the books. We also have 2 submarine commanders coming up. They're going to tell us about life aboard the submarines. And we're trying to raise money for 1 submarine to become a museum or something. Andrew is busy with that. Since the Admiral there, he's talking to Admiral Angel, was an old boy at his school or something, even though he said that Andrew was much younger than him. When I last spoke to him, he said he doesn't really remember him very much, but they'll sort it out. But anyway, thank you for listening here. Thank you for taking the time to listen to us. God bless you until we meet again.